Okay, we're back. We're here with Harold Morrison, longtime resident of Nashville and Bellevue. And Harold, you had some a brush with the waters
I did.
back in May.
My family did, that's right.
Now, how long you been in Nashville?
22 years.
Yeah. And have you lived in Bellevue the whole time?
Lived in Bellevue the whole time,
In the same home?
in the same home. And never had a drop of water on my property from flood water during the entire 22 years.
And was it an old home that had been there for a long time, or
It was built in 1988, so the home was
relatively new?
relatively new, about 22 years in.
Yeah. So, but no history. I mean, probably dating back to probably in the 20s. That was the last flood, I think. But no sign, for as far as we could see, there was no.
None whatsoever.
When you moved there, huh?
Just took everyone by surprise.
Yeah. And so, can you just tell us a little bit about your recollection of that night, those couple of days?
We knew that there had been a lot of rain, and Morton Mill Road would flood occasionally with maybe a foot of water, and a little barricade would be put up, and some people would take the chance, and others wouldn't. But that was the most we've ever seen in 22 years that we've lived here. And but there was some agitation on the part of some residents of our neighborhood who had lived there for only a short while. I know that someone called us on Saturday evening wondering if they should start taking precautions in the case of a flood, and we told them probably you don't have anything to worry about. As long as we've lived here, nothing like that's ever happened, and no one has flood insurance because we're not in a floodplain, and that's what we all thought.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, as it turned out, you were in a floodplain.
That same neighbor woke us up about 6:15 Sunday morning to tell us that we needed to move our vehicles out of our garages, that water was starting to come in. And I jumped up, and my wife and I looked out the window and saw that our entire backyard was underwater, and on the back side of my
and what
property.
time was that?
About 6:15.
Wow.
And at 1 o'clock there was no signs of any water on our property that morning, because I remember getting up and just taking a look out the window, and I knew right then our neighborhood was in trouble, serious trouble. And
that was still early on.
That was early in the morning. The sun was just coming up, and we moved both vehicles out of the garage to a higher elevation, and probably took about 15-20 minutes to do all of that. And when we got back, we could tell that the water level had visibly, you could tell it was rising in the garage, and that we weren't going to have a whole lot of time before we would have to evacuate our home.
Wow. Now, so now that was what, Sunday?
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, Sunday night, and y'all lost power.
We did, except I knew that there might be a danger of fire.
Yeah.
When I realized that a lot of water was going to come into our home, and the electrical equipment on the outside of the house, I was concerned about that. So I actually turned my breaker box off. So we were without power before other folks were. But yeah, we knew that it was gonna be a bad thing.
Yeah. Now at what time did the water start coming into the home?
Well, we had about an hour and a half. About 7:30, 7:45, somewhere around in there was when we made the decision we needed to go. And we have a two-story dwelling, and we were just taking whatever we could to the second level, chairs, light things, pictures, things that could not be replaced.
Yeah.
Just scurrying, trying to make quick decisions as to what to take. But about between 7:30 and 7:45, the water was about to get to the top of our porch, and I knew it was time to go. And I almost made a mistake. We grabbed the dog, and my wife and I went out the front door. Of course, you go down steps, but when I got to the mailbox, the water was about up to here. holding the dog way up here,
Unreal.
and he didn't know what was going on. And
Hope he was a little dog.
a little dachshund. And but it just hit me. I had not given any thought to current, and it was a very frightening thought that I may have made a miscalculation, and just looking at how far we had to walk till we were out of the water. Fortunately, there was no current, none whatsoever.
Oh.
But it was just that's a good example of not having gone through something before. How you can make a serious mistake.
In a blink of an eye, you're in grave danger.
Exactly. Yeah. If there had been a current, we would have waited too late.
Because in your mind, I mean, I'm sure you not being through that experience before, you're not thinking about, okay, where's the creek gonna feed now through this neighborhood? What has turned into a river? Because you're up here, there's undercurrent, there's everything.
Yeah.
You don't think about those things. Where does a river form? Where does the least resistance
You're exactly right.
happen? And then those things start rolling in your head. And when it's a little bit too late, when you're literally neck deep.
It was very frightening, and I'm just so thankful that there wasn't a current at all.
Yeah. Well, thank God you guys made out okay. Now, how now after all this was, you went and you found shelter and everything. Where did you end up?
Well, we decided to evacuate the neighborhood, and I went to Columbia, where my mother lives, and wasn't sure if we would make it, but we did make it. A lot of the roads were starting to flood that we were crossing, but we had time to get out of the neighborhood. Now, from what I understand, just a few minutes after we left, the neighborhood became an island. No one could leave there or get in, and boats had to be brought in to evacuate people out. But we went back to my mother's home and stayed glued to the TV, just desperate for any kind of news. It was still storming, and so helicopters couldn't take to air. But later in the afternoon, late afternoon, 5 o'clock, 5:30, some of the news stations were flying their helicopters, and we got our first scenes from Bellevue and saw our neighborhood and saw our house. And from the aerial view looking down, it certainly appeared to us that the water was up to our roof, and we could look at another part of the neighborhood beyond our home. Now, we were on the edge of it, but some homes that were a little closer to the river than ours, those were places where people were being evacuated off their roofs. And so from the aerial views on this two-dimensional TV screen, we thought the water had gotten up to our roof too, and went to bed that night thinking that we had lost everything, literally everything, as some people did. And we were able to come back later the next afternoon, Monday evening, 6 o'clock. Enough of the water had receded where we were able to get into the neighborhood and go down to our home, and by that time the water was just barely on our driveway. It left as quickly as it came, it seemed.
Yeah.
And we went in, and then we suddenly realized that at least inside the house it didn't get up to 5 feet, not quite 5 feet.
But that's devastating.
It was, but we were expecting the upstairs to
where
have
you had
to.
placed all your valuables, the most precious things that y'all had collected through y'all's lives.
Things that could not be replaced. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so there was this bright ray amidst all this. It wasn't as bad as it was. It wasn't as bad as we were expecting.
Wow.
And we were so grateful, and I think that helped us get through a lot
You were
of this
grateful
too.
with 5 feet of water
Yeah.
in your house. That's great.
Because we thought it was 15 or 20.
Well, that's awesome. So now, how has it been since? I mean, your house was obviously destroyed. Did you have insurance?
I only know of 3 people in our subdivision that had flood insurance, and the ironic thing is I was the 8th house to move, or the 8th homeowner. My wife and I, when we moved into the neighborhood, at that time, the bank that we went through our financing with was looking at old plat maps. And at one time, the old Morton Mill Road that has since been moved was in a floodplain. And using that old plat map, it looked like our home was in a floodplain, and they just insisted that we have flood insurance. And I carried it until 3 years ago. And it was like $170 a month. And then 3 years ago, I realized I'm the only person around here carrying flood insurance. And so I went back and said, hey, there's absolute zero probability of floodwaters ever getting on our property. And so there's just no point of this. And they realized that those were old plat maps. And so that requirement was taken off of us for $170 a year.
Wow, $170 a year.
A year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so here you are, no insurance. You don't have a home to live in.
Yeah.
Home that you've had for 22 years.
Exactly. My child grew up in.
Yeah. All the memories, everything, right there. What do you do?
That was, on Tuesday, we went back to Columbia on Monday after assessing the damage and seeing what had occurred inside our home.
And I'm sure furniture's just
floated.
Everything's upside down.
Yeah, floated. Bookcases exploded where the books expanded by absorbing all that water and just exploded like toothpicks, like a bomb had gone off.
Wow.
And there were some amazing things. My dog's little metal bowl dish that has his dry food in, it floated from one room to the laundry room and then sat down on a tile floor. And that food was just as dry as it was when I poured it in there. He could have come in and ate his food. And there were glass things that we did not bother to take off of shelves and tables and countertops that obviously floated too, and not a single one of those items were broken.
Just laid right back down, just as gentle as can be.
And floated from one side of the house to another and just sat down. Very little that was breakable in terms of china, glass, things like that actually broke. Now wooden things,
tore it all to pieces.
Nothing. Very little survived that if it was made of wood. Yeah. But we came back on Tuesday and hadn't asked for any help. We just needed some time to look around and see what we were going to have to deal with and try to figure out a plan of attack on dealing with all of this. And I guess after about an hour or so of just walking through and seeing that very little was salvageable on the lower level, we were just sitting out in a chair under a tree in our front yard, and those were the feelings that we had. Where do we start? Are we going to recover from this? And I tell you the truth. I look up, and there's this elderly gentleman. He's 83 years old, who lives in our neighborhood, and he's been a good friend of our family for a long time. His wife passed away a little over a year ago, and he was just concerned how we were doing, and he has a severe problem with his back. He's stooped over, and walking at times can be very, very painful for him. But I looked up as we were having these feelings and saw him walking towards us with his cane, and I went over to him, and he had tears in his eyes, and he said, "I just want you to know I've been so worried about you and your wife, and I had to come down here and see if y'all were okay." And he said, I want to have a prayer with you and read a scripture. And he did. And, after he prayed, it's hard for me to describe this. The love that was in that man's eyes, it was almost as if you were looking into the face of God. And he said, I don't have a whole lot of money. said, I've got about $5,000, but I've got a check in my pocket right here, and I want to give it to you if you'll take it. And you know, I knew right then that God was going to take care of us. I did. It just hit me. I felt like I'd had a blessing from Abraham, and I will never forget this as long as I live. And as he turned and walked away, I looked up, and there was my boss. I teach school. My principal was there with, I don't know, 15, 20 people from school, and said, Harold, we're here to help you. We brought this, and this. We figured you were going to need it. Here's food to get you by for the couple of days here. These folks are going to stay with you. You've got all these hands to help you right now. More help's on the way, and tell us what you're going to need. And we knew right then that we were going to get through this, and it was so. It was so.
Wow. So now, have you gotten the house back in order now? And
we have. It's been a journey these past five and a half months. About 2.5 weeks ago, we got the downstairs livable and our appliances all working and all of our electrical issues resolved, and the basic plumbing needs are all met, and had our first home cooked meal in our house since May 2nd, about 2 weeks ago.
Unbelievable.
And that sounds like a little thing, but it's a big thing.
You got to tell me what you had.
Well, it was a very simple meal. We had pizza, but hey, it was the best pizza I've ever put in my mouth.
I was looking for beans, taters, cornbread.
Now,
but I'll take pizza.
Now I did grill out some fish not long after that, but yeah, it was pizza.
Man, it's good to be back home though.
Good to be back home, sure is. Yeah.
Well, and so now you got your house back in order with just donations from
well, you know, I can't describe the generosity of individuals and organizations to help us. The outpouring of generosity, people showed up immediately, and most of these people are people of faith that came out. A lot of them you knew, a lot of them you didn't know. And I remember a busload of young people from one of the church youth groups nearby pulling up in our cul-de-sac, and I guess there were about 40 of them that got off and said, we're here to help. And I said, well, I don't need all 40 of you. I'll take about 8 of you. And I divided them up into groups and sent them here and there. And they were here to work that day, and some of them kept coming back on their own after that. But we can't thank young people enough for what they did.
There was a lot out. I know from my family who lived. Some of them lived over in Franklin. They were telling us, you know, they were going out every day and helping different people and different groups and stuff, and it was just amazing. But isn't that the spirit of our country and of the human spirit? Is to we want to help. It's in our makeup that we, you know, there's this innate goodness in people that just make us want to help, reach out and help people. And
that is so.
More so than more so than the ability to sit back and receive.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, people would come and say, "Now I work with sheet metal, and I can help you do your ductwork when the time comes," or "I do sheetrock, and when the time comes, let me come and help you do that, and I'll bring some of my friends, and we'll take care of that. All you got to do is pay for materials." Somebody else said, "Well, I have a plumbing company, and I want to do what I can to help you get back." Or, "I'm a painter. When the time comes, let me come and paint your home." And so many people could say the same thing. If there was a message in this flood to be found somewhere, maybe it was the message that it's in God alone where all of our trust is to be placed, and not in the corrupt influences of wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about all the greed that occurred a while back on Wall Street and how it disrupted the economy and the lives of so many people, especially poor people who can't take care of themselves in hardship. And then this happens, and now even we know what it's like to lose material goods, how easily that can happen. If that message was there, then I'm grateful for God using us in whatever way He did. You know, some through their losses, others by gain, through acts of charity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming out here and sharing your story with us. It's been extremely enriching for me to be here and listen to these stories. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to listening to this CD, and congratulations on your album.
Oh,
and,
it's the least we can do.
I feel like it's been a blessing to make your acquaintance today.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Thank you, Harold.
Okay, you have a great day.